I wanted to jump on and talk a little bit today about something that comes up really frequently for a lot of designers, a lot of quilters, a lot of quilt pattern designers as well, and something that comes up often for people who join my Quilt Design Code course too. And that is, what is the importance of having a design style? How important is it to define a design style and to have a design style? And how important is it to stay consistent with that design style? So I want to talk about this from a kind of a brand point of view, but I also want to talk about this from a creative expression point of view. So from a brand point of view, it is pretty important to have a consistent, recognizable style so that you become known for a certain type of thing that you want to make. And this is a really strong way to become more known, more recognizable, kind of that instantly recognizable type of thing. I'm sure you can all think about a brand that you know that as soon as you see them, or an artist or a surface designer, somebody that you know, and as soon as you see their work, you think, yeah, that's so-and-so, right? Because they have that recognizable kind of a style. So from a brand point of view, it is pretty important to develop a style, a signature style or a design style, and be consistent with that. Now, from a creative expression point of view, I believe in exploring and experimenting with lots of different types of styles and media as well, like what types of tools you're going to be using to create your work. And I think that, thinking that your design style is something that is fixed can present some problems for us as well, because we as people, as designers, as humans, we evolve, right? So at this point in time, we might be totally inspired by black, white, and yellow, like in my case, or we might find that we are really inspired by nature and natural things, florals and things like that. Now that might mature and evolve over time, and you could stay in this same track. Or you could find that taste and your design style changes as you explore more, as you experiment more. You may become more focused on a certain area of this particular design style, or through your experimentation and exploration, you could discover a totally new style that is yours as well. So there's kind of this balance between, okay, do I need to have a specific style and do I need to always stick with that so that I'm recognizable as a brand? Or am I allowed some kind of artistic freedom and freedom of expression when it comes to experimentation, exploration, and things like that? So I think about these things as not necessarily mutually exclusive. I feel like you can build a brand and build a brand identity that can be representative of one part of your artistic creative expression. And you can also have those experimentations, all of those explorations going on simultaneously. Maybe that's not something you necessarily share about publicly or share about on your social media, but it could be something that you're continually exploring. And I think ultimately those two things will talk to each other, and they will inform one to the other as well as you continue to grow as a designer, as a person as well. And you start to refine your design style as you continue to grow too. While I think it is important to have, a consistent design style and a consistent brand voice if you want to become known for a certain thing, I also think it's important to continue exploring and to continue experimenting as an artist and as a creative. So finding that balance is quite a personal choice, I guess. I generally tend to stick with a limited color palette. This is something that I've been on for a while, and I still feel like it's relevant to me. I haven't come to a point where I think I need to start to change that. So that exploration of color and other design aspects related to my color palette, that could be something that I'm doing, in the background. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to share it with the world and to have it, out there as part of my brand identity. So you can think about it as that, kind of the public and the private. You can think about it as something that is continually evolving. Your design style is something that is continually evolving, and you're continually researching, experimenting, and evolving your design style as you grow as a designer. So that's one question that I get a lot. And I think something that also ties into that is, how do I avoid copying something? How do I have my own unique design voice? How do I avoid looking like everybody else? We don't want to be someone to say to us, oh, your work looks just like so-and-so. Sometimes that can be a real compliment, especially if you are not necessarily trying to emulate, but if you are really inspired by somebody or you really hold their work in high regard, in high esteem, then it can be really flattering to be compared with somebody like that. But by the same token, sometimes it feels a bit like, oh, maybe I'm a little bit too close to what somebody else is making. Maybe I'm not original enough. Maybe I'm not unique enough. And I have spoken about originality in other places as well. There's some journal posts that I have on my website, which you can go and visit, aliryde.com/journal, and you'll find a few posts that I've made there about originality and coming up with unique design ideas. This idea of originality is kind of fraught because ultimately in all of the history of creation of mankind and making and designing and creating an artistic expression, it's highly unlikely that any of us are going to come up with an original idea. But what is unique about us and what is important to remember and to reflect on is that each of us are individuals. Nobody else in the world has our own unique blend of experiences, of inspiration, of influences that we've seen and experienced in our life. And these are what allow us to come up with our own unique design ideas. They may not necessarily be original, but this original blend of all of these different things that we're seeing and bringing together in our mind's eye, in our design black box, which is what I call my brain, this is where that design uniqueness and that design individuality really can be expressed. So if you want to try and avoid copying somebody else, my first advice to you is to look at where you find your inspiration. Go out and seek inspiration that is beyond, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on Pinterest, looking at Google Images. Go out in the world and seek some unique inspiration, something that not everybody else is looking at. So if you're a quilt designer, probably don't go and look at a whole lot of other quilts before you sit down and try to come up with an original or a unique idea for your own quilt design. It's far better to try to look for inspiration in different sources that are outside of the norm or outside of where people might normally look for types of ideas for quilt patterns or quilt designs. The same goes for surface designs. You know this if you're a surface designer, that trying to look at other surface designs and then going to sit down and create your own surface design, of course, consciously or subconsciously, all of those ideas and all of those images are going to be filtered through our design minds, and something is going to come out that's probably going to look pretty similar to the things that you've just been consuming. So something that I've heard before from one of my mentors, from Bonnie Christine, she talks about, create before you consume. And I think this comes originally from Marie Forleo as well, who's another gang-busting creative entrepreneur too. So think about that. You want to create something that's coming out of your unique blend of experience before you go ahead and consume all of those amazing images that we have access to through the internet and through, all of the social media platforms that we have available to us now. That for me is really one key way to avoid copying someone else's idea, whether you're doing it consciously or subconsciously. Obviously we're not all setting out to plagiarize other people's ideas on purpose, right? But sometimes we feel like even subconsciously we might be doing that. And one way to avoid that is really to seek outside those regular channels for some inspiration. Go and find some new ideas that, you haven't really come across before, or something that you go out and seek in the world might kind of say to you, oh, okay, that kind of brings together all of these other ideas that I had. And it could be something that creates a connection between these kind of disparate ideas that you've had in your experience and in your design practice. And from that, you can create this kind of unique blend around those as well. So as I mentioned at the beginning, these are kind of some questions that I get quite often from people who are in my world, who are thinking about designing their own quilts, who are thinking about how they can create fabric designs for quilt patterns, how they can come up with some unique angle to designing a quilt pattern and creating something that is their true creative expression. And so as I started out at the beginning, that's really about considering your design style and considering how that's going to evolve as you evolve as a designer. And also really important is to consider what your sources of inspiration are and how you curate that kind of input into your design black box. It's because what you put in is going to somehow filter out. So the more unique you are in curating that input into your design mind, then the more unique your design output is going to be. So I hope this has given you some good ideas for how you can come up with unique design ideas for quilt patterns or for your own quilts, and how this might also relate back to how you're growing your own creative business too. So having that design identity and tying that into your brand identity, these things are really kind of flow from one to the other as well. So thinking about how your personal design identity, whether that's kind of like a private or a public persona or a design identity that you hold, how that ties into that public brand identity that you might be trying to create as well. I'm looking forward to seeing you again really soon on one of these short videos where I'm talking about all kinds of different questions that come up for people who are thinking about designing or creating quilt patterns. I would love to hear from you. If you have a question that you'd like to hear me speak about, or a topic or something that you've been thinking about, please leave me a question below this video or send me an email, and I would love to speak about one of your questions that you have as well. Maybe next week I will be answering your question. Until then, I'll let you go and have a great time designing and going forth into the world and seeking your own unique blend of inspiration. Bye for now.